She saw me years later. And her smile instantly shattered. "I can't believe it's you," she stammered. I just smirked. "Funny. I don't believe you ever knew me at all. Especially not during that 5-hour church event." Her shocked silence was my revenge. This is the truth I finally pieced together. So, I was with my ex for about 2 years. It was my first serious relationship. And man, was I naive. I was so thrilled to just have a girlfriend that I basically let her walk all over me. Looking back, I see how toxic it was. But at the time, I just thought that's how relationships worked. Every single time we had an argument, even when she was 100% in the wrong, I was always the one who ended up apologizing. It was just easier to keep the peace. You know, my spine was basically a noodle. I'm bringing this up because a memory from that time just came crashing back into my head. And I can't shake it. It happened about 1.5 years into the relationship. She came over to my place one afternoon. And I could tell immediately something was wrong. She wouldn't make eye contact. And her face was all puffy and red. She sat on the edge of my bed and just started sobbing. Not just crying, but that deep, gut-wrenching kind of sobbing where you can barely breathe. My first thought was, okay, what did I do? That was my default setting. But she just shook her head and managed to get out that she had to tell me something. She said she'd been hiding it for a month and it was eating her alive. She then reminded me of a day about a month prior. She had told me she was going to be busy all afternoon at a big church event, and that they were asked to turn their phones off to stay focused. I didn't think twice about it. She was super involved with her church. She went radio silent for about 5 hours, then texted me later that night saying how hectic it was. Simple. But now, sitting on my bed, she told me that was a lie. There was no church event. She said that after the regular service, she saw a bunch of her guy friends from the church and they all decided to hang out. She was the only girl with a group of more than 10 guys. For 5 hours, she was with them. Phone off. While I thought she was at an organized church function, she didn't really give any details about what they did. She just kept repeating, "We just hung out," through her tears. At that moment, seeing her so completely broken down, my brain didn't really process the logistics of her story. My only goal was to make her stop crying. I saw the tears. I heard the guilt in her voice. And I just went into comfort mode. The thought of cheating didn't even enter the same universe as my brain. I hugged her, told her it was okay, and that I appreciated her honesty. In my mind, I had concluded that the lie itself was the big crime. The guilt she felt from being dishonest for a month was what was destroying her. And I figured that was punishment enough. I accepted her story. We moved on. And I buried the memory. But now, years later, I'm replaying that scene in my head. And I feel like such an idiot. It wasn't just a lie. It was a whole cover story. And her reaction. It was so extreme. I took her word for it then. But what do you guys think? Am I just overthinking a weird situation from the past? Or was my brain skipping over some seriously massive red flags? Thanks for the feedback so far. Reading your comments is validating what my gut is screaming at me now. That memory didn't just pop back into my head. It hit me like a flashbang last week while I was driving. Out of absolutely nowhere. The image of her crying on my bed just appeared in my mind. But this time, it was different. The fog of love and my desperate need to avoid conflict were gone. All I had was the cold, hard memory. And for the first time, I started actually thinking about it. So, I started to break down her story. Piece by piece. Like some kind of detective reopening a cold case. First off, the 5-hour communication blackout. She told me she turned her phone off. Why? Her cover story was a hectic church event where they were asked to do that. Okay. Plausible enough. But what was her real story? That she went to hang out with more than 10 guys? What kind of hangout requires your phone to be completely off for 5 hours straight? My brain started cycling through the possibilities. A movie. Most movies aren't 5 hours long. And even if it was a double feature, you just silence your phone. You don't turn it off. It felt intentional. Like she was making herself completely unreachable, so no one, especially me, could check in. Then I moved on to her emotional state. This is the part that's really messing with me. She claimed she hid this for a month and the guilt ate her up to the point of a full-blown mental breakdown in front of me. Guilt over what exactly? Hanging out with friends. People do that all the time. I wouldn't have cared if she'd just been honest from the start. but the level of her emotional distress was so wildly out of proportion to the crime she was confessing to. It was like watching someone confess to jaywalking with the same anguish as someone confessing to a felony. The reaction didn't match the event she described. It only makes sense if the hangout was a placeholder for something far worse. Finally, there's the lie itself. The whole church event cover story. Why even make that up? If her plans were truly innocent, she could have just texted me, "Hey, going to hang with some friends from church for a bit. I'll text you later." Simple. Done. The fact that she constructed a preemptive, detailed lie tells me she knew from the beginning that what she was planning to do was something she couldn't tell me about. The lie wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing. It was a calculated move to give her a 5-hour, unsurveilled window of time. Looking back, I was so focused on the fact that she lied. I never stopped to ask why the lie was necessary in the first place. My desperation to believe her, to keep the relationship stable, made me completely blind. Now, all these pieces are snapping together, and they're painting a really ugly picture. Am I crazy here? I'm laying out the facts as I remember them. Does her story sound plausible to any of you? Or am I right to believe something much more serious happened in that 5-hour gap? So, here's where I've landed after spending way too much time thinking about this. Putting all the pieces together. The pre-planned lie about the church event. The 5 hours of being completely unreachable. And the soul-crushing, month-long guilt that led to a full-on breakdown. My brain can only arrive at one conclusion. She did something she was deeply ashamed of. The story she gave me was just the heavily censored, PG-rated version of what actually happened that day. My mind, of course, jumps to the most obvious and damaging possibility, that she had some kind of sexual rendezvous. It's the only thing that seems to justify the extreme level of secrecy and guilt. But I also have to acknowledge that it could have been something else on that spectrum of betrayal. Maybe it wasn't a full-blown hookup. Maybe it was just making out. Or some intense emotional affair that went too far. Honestly, the specifics don't even matter as much as the core truth. She did something that she considered a massive betrayal. And then she looked me in the eye and gave me a story that was designed to placate me, not inform me. And I have to be clear about something. This incident, as messed up as it is, wasn't the final straw that broke us up. I finally woke up and left her a few months after this happened. I left because of the constant gaslighting, the endless arguments she always won, and the slow dawning realization that I was miserable. I ended it because the relationship as a whole was an unhealthy mess. But this memory coming back now feels different. It's like finding the missing piece of a puzzle I didn't even know I was solving. It recontextualizes the entire 2 years. It wasn't just a generically toxic relationship with a difficult person. It was a relationship with someone who was capable of a level of deception that I was too naive to even consider possible. I thought our problems were about communication and her temper. I never realized there might have been outright betrayal hiding underneath it all. The problem is, I'll never have proof. I'm never going to get a straight answer. And I'm definitely not about to reach out to her and ask. That chapter is closed. So I'm stuck with this new, ugly reality living in my head. A part of my past that I thought I understood has completely changed to shape. And it feels unsettling. So I guess I'm asking you guys for a final verdict. Based on everything I've laid out. Am I right to believe she cheated or seriously betrayed me that day? And more importantly, how do you process something like this, years after the fact? Is there a point to re-examining old wounds? Or am I just torturing myself over something I can't change and should just let go of?